morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nimhauser. You can find me everywhere you find your content at Hawk Blogger, and it is a Seahawks Saturday. So we get to spend some time with my good pal, Jeff Simmons. How are you doing this fine Saturday, Jeff?
I'm all right, man. I'm all right. It's raining over here. It's
Mm,
Very Seattle-ish weather this week in Toronto. So,
gotta say, it's gonna be like close to 70 today in Seattle.
oh man, you golfing today? You going outside?
Heck yeah, golfing today.
Oh man,
Taking my boy with me. Rachel may tag along and read a book in the golf cart. We'll see.
nice.
So, yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. Well, it was kind of I don't know if a quiet week relative to most weeks, but like not the most newsworthy of late. And we're gonna have some fun today doing something we haven't done before. We'll see how this goes, but I know you've been jonesing to do some mock draft stuff, and we didn't even get a chance to do it last week. So we're gonna do our first ever mock draft battle, and this is gonna be an audience participation process where we're gonna go through 3 rounds with different themes for each round of what we wanted to try to draft. And for each round, we're gonna let the live chat audience tell us who won, and we'll kind of try to figure out the criteria along the way. But we're gonna go round for round, and as I've said, 2 men will enter and 2 men will leave because none of this actually matters at all. So it's just for fun. But this is a little harder than I expected it to be. What did you think?
Yeah, I had the same thing. Like you sent me a simulator I hadn't used before,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to give anything away, but there's certain players at certain spots. I've played with so many of the simulators. I've looked at your mock drafts that like I know I can count on to be there. And this one, like 2 of the 3 things I know I can count on just never happened. So it it was different. There's some names that we've talked about even in the last show. They never made it to 18. So that threw me off in all 3 scenarios. So it was fun to do. It just made me think a little bit differently. There's some players I got I'm thinking about taking every time, but yeah, it was a good challenge because I'm so used to certain ones where like this guy's here at 18, this guy's here at 50. You can kind of rig it. Didn't get it that time.
Yeah, there's I should pull up who did it, but someone on the Discord channel actually said, "Hey, check out this new mock draft system." So we're giving it a roll, and we'll share those results as we go through. And one of the things I struggled with is at least the desktop version of this. I couldn't figure out how to see who I had already picked
Yeah,
without scrolling back, and that was kind of annoying. So there's a couple times where I was like, "Oh, did I already take that position?" I couldn't remember it.
I had to restart. I took 2 tight ends.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know if it's exactly exactly what I would have done in certain situations what I was trying to do, but it'll be fun to talk about. Before we get there, I don't know. Did you hear the show yesterday when I was talking about the Geno Smith and Sam Darnold stuff?
I did. I needed to hear someone talk about that because I was kind of losing my mind. What was that? Wednesday,
That was
Thursday,
that was
Thursday. Your
Friday.
show was Friday, but I
Yeah,
feel like when all that discourse got out on
Thursday.
Thursday,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
was kind of losing my mind, and so
I I had to run because I was golfing yesterday as well, and it didn't go well. By the way, lost the driver. It
oh
had been
no,
such a good driver place, and it started. I started going haywire on me. But um, I had more to say, and so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. And you're welcome to chime in if you do have anything else to say as well. There are folks who are like, I don't want to hear about this anymore. I get it because I don't really want to hear about it, but I had more to say, so I'm going to say it. And part of why I had more to say is because I got responses to the show that are exactly what I'm still seeing. It was like I saw people saying, "Thank you for finally saying Geno Smith wanted to be here, and that this whole thing about Geno Smith didn't want to be here wasn't true." And then what goes in on how John Schneider really blew all this, and I'm like, okay, I, you have an agenda, you have a bias in this, and then I also got people saying, hey, you can't just compare Sam Darnold's last year to Geno Smith's last year. You have to compare Sam Darnold in all the years before. No, you don't, because unless you're going to take Geno Smith's 24, 25, and 26 season when he was of those ages, and you're going to compare Geno Smith when he was a terrible quarterback, that's not apples to apples either. Geno Smith is a much different player than he was back then. And so I don't think it is actually good comparison to take data from when he was clearly a different player. And so everyone's, and then you get people on the other side that are like, thank you to finally say that Geno Smith was never good. And we're now like, no, that is not what I'm saying. I want to be as clear as I can. I don't know how this is going to turn out. I think it is logical, the decisions that John Schneider and the team have made to get where we are. I think it is risky, the decisions that John Schneider has made to get where we are. And I don't think that this was all on John Schneider one way or another. Geno Smith and DK Metcalf have made decisions that may or may not work out for both of them. And I understand all sides. I understand why Geno Smith wants his last, most likely his last contract to be his best contract. I understand why DK Metcalf, well, I don't really, but why he wanted to go somewhere else, that's fine. I don't know why he wanted to go to Pittsburgh, but fine. I just don't have a dog to hunt in this one. I just want this to turn out as well as possible for the Seahawks. And I'm exhausted by everyone twisting every single possible fact to try to support a prior perspective on either Geno Smith or John Schneider. That's what I'm just sick of.
Yeah, it almost feels like a political campaign at this point. And it's like when you're going through like an election and you have people like just so one-sided on their arguments, it really got hard to read, I found the other day. And the thing that bothered me the most, and I think you kind of hit on what I would say, the matter of factness of the evaluations. I saw someone who I respect say matter of factly that Geno Smith is worth 2 games more than Sam Darnold. Like, I think that's crazy. And I'm not saying they're wrong. It's possible he's completely right. But I think what you just said is why I love the NFL. I don't know. And I think so many people need to realize they don't know. And I could just tell you examples like Mina Kimes. I'm not coming out here to slam on Mina. I think Mina's as good as Mina gets. But this kind of illustrates my point of we don't know. Mina's been as good as anyone about kind of evaluating the thing Geno does that gets missed by like the national conversation. But to show you how little we know about projecting quarterbacks, the year Geno broke out, Mina went on national TV and pleaded John Schneider to draft Malik Willis. So if she could project quarterbacks, and I'm not saying Mina can't project quarterbacks. We had smart people that wanted Desmond Ridder. And we had smart people, I thought, when we signed Geno Smith, it was a laughable idea. We don't know.
Yeah.
The whole point of projection and why the NFL is cool and fun and why I love it is it's year over year, there's all these advanced numbers and stats. We don't know. And there's people in the Shanahan-O'Connell tree, McVay tree, that would absolutely tell you Sam Darnold is a better bet moving forward than Geno Smith. I know people in that tree. I can tell you that as a fact. I'm not saying they're right. I'm not saying they're wrong, but we don't know this answer. And so to have a matter-of-fact opinion that this guy is clearly better than this guy based on last year, that's not how it works. Personnel decisions are not about projecting backwards. It's about projecting forwards. And yeah, I think a lot of the criticism of John Schneider and how the Seahawks and how they handled it is valid.
Yeah.
I think it's valid that Geno and his camp probably did their best way to orchestrate their way to Las Vegas. That doesn't mean he wanted out. He wanted an extension last year. But to me, like to have a matter-of-fact opinion of this is certainly going to happen based on what happened last year. Look at Darnold. Look at Geno. Like, there's no evidence that would have pointed to any of those guys breaking out.
Yeah. 100%.
So I get annoyed when we come out and have a matter-of-fact opinion based on years of data where we've proven we don't know these answers.
Mm-hmm.
So to have a matter-of-fact, this is going to happen, and I think that's where I get annoyed with PFF grades sometimes because they're not predictive. And the Seahawks have made mistakes based on that, thinking they are predictive. The things I always look for and why I love the draft so much is because, look, last year in the draft, the picks that were universally hated, Tyrese Knight and A.J. Barner, we both cringed when those picks happened. Rob, who's one of my favorite draft people, Rob Staten, he hated those picks. The safe picks were Christian Haynes and DJ James. based on like the media consensus board. Knight and Barner ended up as the two maybe best picks, maybe the better picks of the whole day 3, and they were universally hated. So we don't know, and I'm not going to come out and say, oh, well, what we're saying is bullshit. I want you to have opinions. It's good to have opinions, but to have matter-of-fact statements as this is going to happen, that doesn't work for me, and that's where I get pissed off.
Yeah, really well said. Jeff, you are in good company with Robert Mays. There's a little bit of a StreamYard bug that sometimes a mic can get staticky. Would you mind exiting out of StreamYard, unplugging your mic, plugging it back in, and then rejoining?
Yeah.
All right,
If it happens to Robert.
It does. So last thing I'll just say on this while Jeff gets back on, hopefully that fixes it. If it doesn't, we'll deal with it. Is that, I had a conversation a few weeks ago with a self-proclaimed Geno cultist. I mean, I think he literally has it in his Twitter bio, but he was like, I'm out on the Seahawks until John Schneider's fired. And I'm like, well, if you're out on the Seahawks till John Schneider's fired, does that mean that you're going to be rooting against them? Like if Sam Darnold comes in and actually plays as well as he did last year, are you going to be angry about that? Because if that's the case, then you're not a Seahawks fan. You are a Geno Smith fan. That's okay. You could choose to be a fan of whatever you want or fan however you want. But I am a Seahawks fan. I will always, I will always cheer for the Seahawks, including situations where it will make my takes look like crap. I don't care about my takes when it comes to comparing to Seahawks victories. I will always, if Creed Humphrey had ended up being awful and D. Eskridge had been an All-Pro, I would have been thrilled. And I gave that an F grade right away. If Jimmy Graham had been the reason that we won our next Super Bowl and Max Unger and we had never had problems at center again, I would have been thrilled. Even though I gave that an F grade when it happened. So, yes, I will have strong opinions. And I think, like you said, everyone should have strong opinions. But the best moments are when the good things happen to the Seahawks in spite of our opinions. So that's kind of the last thing I wanted to rant about there. Are you ready to start this mock draft battle?
Yeah, here we go.
All right. So round 1 of this mock draft battle, we'll have to have a little bit of a discussion about how we want the people in chat to grade us on this, all right? So the first draft was meant for both of us to try to mimic what we think John Schneider would do. Where's your bracelet? Is WWJSD. What would John Schneider do, right? And I think, do you have any good ideas of how people can judge about which one of us did a better job?
Just giving us a grade. I don't know.
Just a gut grade.
It's just a gut.
Just a gut. Whether you think that felt like a John Schneider draft. Okay, so the way we're gonna do this is in this first round, we are going to first have you go and read off your first round grade or first round pick, and then I will read my first round pick, and then you will read your second round picks, both second round picks. I will read my second round picks, and so forth. And then at the end, we will share our full draft, and we'll be able to talk about which one we feel like is like we'll be able to have people share which one. Okay, so people want to do a poll. Let me see if I can manage to do a poll. I think I have to get into the YouTube chat, and I'm not in there. So let me see if I can make this work. I could do a Google form, but let's just see if I can get this to work. So can I create a poll? Yes, I can create a poll. All right, so I will make a poll. Who had the most John Schneider-esque draft? And the answers will be Jeff or Brian. All right. So I'm not going to start the poll yet. We're going to go through our drafts. Okay, so first round, pick 18. And by the way, rules of engagement, Jeff and I said no trades. So we just wanted to keep it same picks, apples to apples. All right, first pick for John Schneider by Jeff Simmons is
Shahad Campbell, Alabama.
Jahad Campbell. Okay, why?
Um, I think John has really made the decision in the last couple of years to go with best player on the board, regardless of position. And I think Jihad is one of the cleaner evaluations. I know he had the surgery, but I also see it as a John Schneider's pick because it's also the kind of pick that's going to make a lot of Seahawks fans' stomachs turn, where it might not be a big need for them like the Witherspoon pick was, but it might be the best player. And I could see McDonald loving this player. We've talked about this. It may be a one that makes a lot of us uncomfortable, but I was looked who's on the board. A lot of the names I looked at aren't the ones I'm usually looking at there. And I could just see John being like, well, we couldn't trade down. We wanted to get an offer. It wasn't good enough. This was the highest guy on our board. It just seemed like a clean evaluation that Schneider would like.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I definitely I think there was one version of this where I might have gone a similar direction. My first round pick for John Schneider, Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan. And I looked at a few different options here and ended up going with Loveland. I almost went with Emin for similar reasons why you went with Campbell. But Loveland essentially seemed like the BPA on the board, and with the Michigan ties, and I saw a pretty interesting thing from Brett. Was it Nate Tice? Actually,
Nate Tice. Yeah, that was a great article.
He actually came out with the conclusion that he thought Loveland was a better blocker than Tyler Warren. He thought Warren actually had some challenges in blocking. Did you read that?
I did. And there's not a lot of times where I'll swing my opinion based on an article. I think he kind of sold me that I was pretty much out on Loveland. I think I can live with it after reading that article. And Nate Tice is one of the guys I really respect. So
yeah,
I thought it was really well done. And I had not seen anyone have that take before. So
yeah. So I went with Loveland there. And again, not like a clear top need, but BPA. So we came to similar conclusions for why. All right, so let's go to round 2. You picked who? Who are your 2 picks in round 2?
Mason Taylor, the tight end from LSU, and Marcus Bow, the interior lineman they didn't meet with at the combine.
Why did you make those selections?
I think, like you did, I think that the conclusion that their staff is going to make is that I think a tight end, no offense in the last year of his deal, I think a receiving tight end, and I know Griff has done a really good job of kind of emphasizing that he thinks his coaching staff is really going to want to use more of that receiving tight end, maybe more so than a number 2 wide receiver. And so the tight end sweet spot to me has always been that spot. The receiver I usually expect to be there. This is what I alluded to in the first part. Did not quite fall the way I was expecting. So then the interior lineman, same kind of thing. Tate Ratledge is one I usually look at here. He didn't make it either. So I thought about Bo as one of the best zone blocking interior linemen. I know they didn't meet with him at the combine, but sometimes that's sometimes Schneider's trying to hide something. So I thought, okay, who fits this offense really well? And I took 2 players that fit the offense.
All right, I'm going to start writing yours down so that I can show them both at the same time. So your first was Jahad Campbell, and then Mason Taylor, tight end, and then Marcus Bow. Yeah?
Purdue, yeah.
Okay, so I had Colston Loveland at tight end in first round. And then in second round, I went with Tate Ratledge and Quinn Ewers. And my reason for Tate Ratledge is what have we heard them say over and over and over again about what is like the key aspect of offensive line play in this offense. It's getting off the ball. And I think Ratledge had an excellent combine in that regard. He also is just like a John Schneider guy. I mean, I can't imagine John Schneider meeting with the mulleted Tate Ratledge and not just loving that guy. So I think he really feels like their kind of guy, meets their needs, and then Quinn Ewers, like I can't just pick guys that I'd be fond of. This is like who and John Schneider does pick some guys that I just cringe at, like I just don't like those picks. And I have this just sneaking suspicion that he likes Quinn Ewers, and we're going to have to stomach that as the quarterback pick. So that's how I got there.
Fair enough.
Okay. Let's go to round 3. Who are your 2 third-round picks?
I had to bite my tongue that whole segment. Round 3, Quinn Ewers.
Did you really?
That's why I didn't have a word to say when you were done.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Round 3, I had Quinn Ewers at quarterback and Josiah Stewart, the edge from Michigan.
I almost went with him as well.
So We're very aligned so far. We both had Ewers. We both had a Michigan pick early. But yeah, I'm not high on Quinn Ewers. I'll admit that. I don't like it. He's being trained by Mike McCarthy, who's one of Schneider's best friends in the league. So people made that tie. I'm pretty uncomfortable with the idea of him. I don't see him as a starting quarterback at the NFL level. But John has been tied to that guy for years because randomly in a press conference, like after maybe the 23 draft, he just randomly is like, yeah, we've been studying Quinn Ewers and we think he could have a really good year this year. Like, I've made note of that since then, and maybe we're kind of just grasping at straws here, but he's got like there was a video of him throwing a deep ball, and it was like the worst deep ball I've ever seen. It's like the wobbliest deep ball, and they showed like 2 people clapping after. I know, but we all keep coming to this conclusion that John may like him.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you this, Jeff. If he nails every other pick and goes with Quinn Ewers, I'll be like, okay, whatever. But if it's a shaky draft and they push Quinn Ewers up to the second round, I will really, really struggle. So, again, not our picks.
No.
We're trying to mimic John Schneider in this first round, this first version of this battle. Okay, so you did Quinn Ewers, Josiah Stewart. My third round picks for John Schneider: Oluwafemi Oladejo, the edge rusher, and Savion Williams, the / wide receiver running back player. And I got to Oluwafemi because, one, the Seahawks have gone to the UCLA bucket quite a bit. Zach Charbonnet, obviously Jake Bobo, and also Oladejo is just like one of the classiest people in this class and had an outstanding Senior Bowl. And so those things typically have gotten John Schneider's attention, and they're looking for good people. And Savion Williams, they are having on a 30 visit. And I have this suspicion that they might be one of those teams that looks at him and thinks that he's an outstanding athlete, and they can figure out how to utilize him in this offense. Not my favorite guy at this point, but someone that I could see them spending an early round pick on.
Like maybe they see him as like a Shaheed in this offense, or
I don't think they'd see him that way. I think
Deebo Samuel maybe. Like
I think they might see him as like as kind of a Cordero Patterson, like a guy that they could use at running back, like a lot of position flex and maybe even part of 2-back sets. But I don't know. Like, I'm not sure I see the perfect fit. Maybe they even see him like being able to play a little tight end. I mean, he is 225 pounds, and so I don't know. He's definitely an intriguing athlete, intriguing player. We'll see. All right, round 4. Who was your 4th round pick for John Schneider?
I didn't like this one, but tight end Jackson Hawes.
Jackson Hawes.
I've already taken one tight end, and I could see them just being like, we needed one of the best blocking tight ends in the world to round out this group. We need to get better around the football. I know we've done mocks with him. I would not if they took a tight end early and then a double tight end here for a receiver, I would struggle. But it just feels like a Schneider pick.
It does. I think you're doing a nice job so far, I have to say. My fourth round pick, another 30 visit, and a guy Rob Staten has been talking up a lot even before the 30 visit. Offensive tackle Chase Lunt, a guy that I can see them absolutely looking at as a guy that they'd want to bring in. And in about the round that I think they'd look to do something like that. So Chase Lunt is my pick. Okay, round 5. Who are your 2 fifth-round picks?
We're on the same wavelength. I took Logan Brown, the offensive tackle, and Jack Kaiser, the linebacker from Notre Dame.
Okay, and why did you take those 2 guys?
Same reason you mentioned Chase Lunt. I think they need a younger swing tackle. I think Logan Brown fits in the system. Lunt is actually someone I've gotten more familiar drafting with. I think he's like a good swing tackle option. And then the board kind of got away from me. This is where I usually trap those defensive tackles. And I went to go draft one, and there was no one there. And this is where I wasn't familiar with the simulator between Cam Jackson and Caldwell from Oregon. It's usually one of these guys that's sitting around. They were cleaned out. So I looked at just best player available. We were already drafted a linebacker. But Jack Kaiser just seemed like a guy you could add 2 linebackers in the system. He had a really good Senior Bowl. So I just went best player available at that point.
Yeah, Jack Kaiser strikes me as a guy that both Mike McDonald and John Schneider could get excited about. So, and Logan Brown, I gotta admit it, that's a great call. He's a guy that I'm not that high on, and I just have this instinct. I have the Cameron Young feel about that, where I'm like, they're gonna he's a guy they're gonna take, and I don't like. I'm not saying he's terrible, but he feels very
Low
very
upside.
much in their kind of mold of the offensive
Day
lineman that
3.
they take.
Yeah.
All right, so you took Logan Brown, Jack Kaiser in the 5th round. I took for them Jake Bringingstool, the tight end who is also a fullback. Some people think he's the best fullback in the draft. And I took Clay Webb. I think Clay Webb is just like exactly who John Schneider would like. I think he's going to be very fond of Clay Webb, and I'm fond of Clay Webb. So we're in the same camp there. Probably a little bit higher, maybe I don't know. Actually, I think Clay Webb's kind of a little hard to predict where he'll go in this class, but this is John Schneider in my draft taking his second guard and third
Yeah,
offensive
you got 2
lineman.
guards and a tackle right now.
Yes. He took 2 guards and a tackle last year. And I think that I can see him doing it again. All right, round 7. Your 2 round 7 picks are.
Let me see. I kept taking offensive line. That's my 4th one. I took Jack Nelson from Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
There's a double up in the spot. And I took Woody Marks, I think the running back from USC.
Now, what was your reason behind those 2 guys being Schneider picks?
Schneider loves running backs. I think they're going to want to add a running back somewhere in this draft, probably day 3. Schneider's alluded to how much he loves this class. So based on the running backs that were available, there was more of like the scat back. There was like LaQuint Williams, the guy from Syracuse, and Woody Marks. He goes by a different first name, I believe, but they called him Woody at USC. He just seems like a Schneider guy to throw into the system, see if it hits. Jack Nelson was just a pure scheme fit. Again, I'd be taking 2 offensive tackles on day 3, which is probably not the best way to go. 2 linebackers, 2 offensive tackles, 2 tight ends, but just keeping to add to the offensive line group. And Jack Nelson seems like a real clean scheme fit.
That makes sense. And I actually really was trying to find the running back to go with a few times and ended up not, because I agree with you. I think he's going to want to try to take it back. In my round 7 picks, Isaac Tesla, the wide receiver, I think he strikes me as, he caught my eye at the Senior Bowl, and I just feel like his testing is going to catch John Schneider's eye as well. And Jalen Smith, cornerback out of SC. I hadn't yet drafted a corner, and I know that they wanted to add some competition, probably a little bit late. But here are the results of that battle, and I'm going to start the poll right now to say who had the most John Schneider esque draft, and this is live in chat right now. And we don't have, this is like if you were just assessing these two, which do you think feels like the most John Schneider esque draft? And as the results are pouring in here, it's 50-50. It's more towards you. It's back to 50-50. I think it's heading towards being a Jeff victory, I believe, in round one. It's very close,
I don't know.
but heading.
I'm looking at your first day 3 just feels for you so Schneider.
I Yeah, I like your first round more than mine. I like my second round more than yours.
I agree.
I like I think we're about equal on third round.
I think
I
you did better
think
on day 3.
I think I think we're about even on day 3.
So it's, yeah, 50-50 is pretty good.
I think that's about right. And but the poll is pretty much with 70 votes in, 57%, 58% have gone for Jeff Simmons. So we're going to end it there. Jeff Simmons has taken round one. Ding, ding, ding. We need a little sound effect there of this mock draft battle. So that was round one. Now it's going to be very confusing because we've got rounds of the battle and then rounds of the draft, but you guys are smart enough. You can follow along. So here we go for the second round of this battle. And this one is going to be, who would we pick? Who would we pick? And this was more pressure in some ways, Jeff, because I mean, I wanted there's then I start like judging like, oh, is this really who I would have wanted, and would I have done this differently? It's a little more pressure when it's your own choices.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that in mind, let's hear it from you. Who was your first round pick in the Jeff Simmons draft?
This is where I said the draft went differently than I was used to, and the scenarios came differently. And the more I get into this, I'm starting to really kind of come to the conclusion I love this player. And so Donovan Jackson, guard from Ohio State, might be a reach to some, but I just want this guy on my football team.
All right. Well, Jeff, people are going to have a hard time choosing between us if this is how it's going to go, because I also picked Donovan Jackson in the first round. This was Gray Zabel was already gone.
Me too.
And yes. So, you have to pivot. And I looked at a lot of other names. I stared at Shamar Stewart. I stared at Nick Emanwari. And ultimately, I can't come out of this with having to take a chance in round two. I think Donovan Jackson is going to be a very good lineman. I don't need to think more about it than that. So that's where I went with Donovan Jackson.
Yep.
All right. Give me your round two picks.
I took Tate Ratledge, the guard from Georgia, and I took Elijah Arroyo, the tight end from Miami.
And why did you pick those two?
Again, I want them to completely rebrand the guard position. I think Ratledge and Jackson are my two favorite guards, along with Zabel. If you can get both of them, I'm doubling up, but I'm trying to make that a strength of the team. Ideally, I wanted potentially just that second pick to be a receiver or tight end. And the receivers there, based on Arroyo was the last of the tight ends left. I found the tight ends dropped off a cliff after Arroyo. So to me, Arroyo, I think, is a really good fit as more of the receiving tight end in this offense. Though there was more receivers left, so I took the tight end.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying there. This sim made it a little hard in that regard. So my second round picks. I went with Jared Wilson, the center. Now, again, these are my picks. Even though we've heard that they don't like the center class, I really like Jared Wilson, and I love him in this particular offense, and I love the guy. And I think you've got a chance to add with him and Donovan Jackson two great personalities with leadership capabilities into that offensive line room. And so, like, I almost went with another guard, but I was a little bit like, okay, one of those guys almost certainly isn't going to play. So this at least gives me a chance to add some competition to the center room, and maybe we end up with two starters out of those picks. So that's why I went Jared Wilson next, and then I went Tyleik Williams. I went with one of the more disruptive nose tackle prospects in this class from Ohio State, a guy that I think some people have compared to like Aleem McNeil as
Yes.
like a pretty athletic defensive lineman, 330 pounds. He was in my Big Boys episode, and you know me, Jeff, man. Beef, beef, beef. Like let's get stronger up front, and
If
so
it's
that's why I went
if we
that
go
way.
guard center D tackle, that's gonna be a happy Jeff and I think a happy Brian. But remember, John Schneider said he didn't like the center class. He
Yes,
didn't say he didn't like all the centers, and I think after Jared Wilson, it does fall off a cliff pretty quick. So
it
they
does.
still might like Jared Wilson. That might have been their smokescreen around it. So
That is a possibility for sure.
yeah,
All right, I'm eager to hear your third round picks. Who do you have in the third round?
let me just pull it up. I took Jalen Noel, the receiver. I don't think this is realistic. I don't think he'll be there. But when I was watching the board come down, I was kind of praying for him, and I got after Jalen Noel at receiver, and then I took the safety from Texas, Makuba, as my second, third rounder.
Love those. I also took Jalen Noel with my first third round pick, my first skill position pick, your second skill position pick, and then my second third round pick. This is a guy that I just think it was the best player. I couldn't. There's a lot of other ways I could go. I was looking at Terrence Ferguson, tight end. I was looking at like this is where I was going to take a tight end. So we were in similar mindsets. But Charles Grant, the tackle, I think is the best outside zone tackle in this class. I think he might end up being one of the better tackle prospects in this class from William and Mary. Really athletic, really can move, and I think the idea of adding more to that tackle room just makes a lot of sense. And so this, for me, gives me three offensive linemen in my first five picks.
Yep.
And I like, we'll get into grading each other's classes, but I really was struck by this skill position versus trenches decision. And I just kept going back to trenches.
Yeah.
All right. Your fourth round pick was?
So this is where the draft kind of like I
Yeah.
usually take nose tackle here or D tackle, and I was cleaned out again. So I went with a way different plan than what I was thinking of. I took Kyle McCord at quarterback.
Mm.
And at some point, they need to take flyers on quarterbacks. I think with Darnold, I look at the Darnold thing as 2 years and we'll see. I think they need to start throwing prospects. I think Sam Howell, it's pretty clear that's not going to work. So once the D linemen were kind of cleared out, which is why, and I didn't see a lot of things jump off the screen, I'm like, you know what? Let's take the flyer. McCord, I think, does fit in the system. If it doesn't work, if he's just a backup, that's fine for a fourth rounder.
Mm-hmm.
So I went with him.
I think that's a really smart pick. I definitely stared at him in this particular round, or this version of our draft battle. I went a different direction. I really think that cornerback's a place where Mike McDonald wants to add competition, and I think the team needs to add. And there's a guy that I really love that was still available. Goes by a familiar name, Kobe Bryant, cornerback from Kansas. So I added Kobe Bryant. This was my second defensive pick out of the first four rounds. and a player I think it could really add to the competition in that spot. All right, your 5th round picks were.
I went with Chase Lund and Jaden Blue, the Texas running back.
And why'd you pick those guys?
I wanted to tackle. Travis had just went right before me. I wanted to. I had two guards in there. The centers were pretty much cleaned out, and then I was at a point where like there wasn't much there at the end of this 5th round, and so I just wanted someone with upside, and I took someone who I think would make sense as a logical 5th rounder. Probably a little earlier than I would ideally like to take a running back. I would have loved a D lineman or an edge here, but based on how this board fell, it was mostly skill players, mostly offensive tackles who I liked. So I didn't love that second pick there, but it was the best player on the board.
Yeah, I like Jaden Blue quite a bit, but yeah, I hear it. And I think Chase Lund's great value in the 5th round.
Mm-hmm.
I in my 5th round went with Jack Kaiser, linebacker. We've already talked about that. I also am just a big fan. He's a great coverage backer. I think he's almost an ideal. Him and Demetrius Knight, both I feel very good about as kind of later round backup linebackers that have potential to be good starters. And then Willie Lampkin. Willie Lampkin.
Nice.
I take him because not only does he give you a chance to have your fullback, I think he's an unbelievable guy. He also has an outside chance of becoming an offensive lineman for you. Like
Yeah.
he may end up being a center for you if he proves that he can do it. And so I just think this is a guy that was you know, voted best blocker in the ACC, and you put him at fullback, and he's athletic enough to be able to play that position. I think that could be a game changer for like the physicality of how you play your offense. So Jack Kaiser, Willie Lampkin were my 2 picks there. And by the way, if you missed the Willie Lampkin interview on this show, make sure you check out the channel, search for Willie Lampkin, and you'll find that interview. Great dude. All right, 7th round, 7th and final round. Who are your 2 picks in the 7th round, Jeff?
I took Upton Stout, the cornerback, and I took Ricky White to double up on receivers from UNLV. We usually get him a little bit earlier, so I was surprised he was still sitting there in the 7th round. Him and Upton Stout are guys I've taken in other mock drafts a lot higher, 4th round, 5th round. I like both players quite a bit on day 3. I think that in the 7th round they would be pretty much no-brainers. I think Ricky White has a lot of things that you can see projecting to the NFL, especially on special teams too. He can be a really good player there. And Upton Stout's a guy I think will just add to the room. I think he can play corner. He can play safety. I think in the 7th round, it's just a no-brainer at that point. So I've doubled up on receiver. I'm very skill position heavy here after my early picks. But I really like just the values I got throughout this draft.
Well, we are not surprisingly similar. And let me get the poll ready here. I drafted Isaac Tesla, the receiver, in the 7th round, and Upton Stout. So, similar logic here. Ricky White was not available in my version. I think that would have been my pick as well, but you deal with what you got. So, with that in mind, let me bring up the results of this draft for us, and let me get the poll launched. All right, so this is round 2. Who had the better draft? And Jeff, what's your answer when you look at these 2?
I think you did. I like what you did more trenches. I think I started well, but like when you go Noel, Makuba, Cord, Blues, Upton, Stout, White, it's a little too skill positiony. And nothing wrong with that. They need to get faster. They need to get more athletic. But I think I'm missing the D-line pick that where I lead to your side. But I like what I did. It's just by not taking like the Tyleik Williams there, I don't have a defensive lineman. And so that's a hole in my draft.
Yeah, I see. The thing is, I like every one of your picks. I don't like every one of my picks. Like the Isaac Tesla pick is fine. I don't feel like that's a great, but it's a 7th round pick, so I don't lose too much sleep over it. I like Charles Grant better than Chase Lunt. I think he is like higher upside. I like that I got a corner, and I think like I got two
You
corners,
got
and I
two
like
corners.
Kobe Bryant and Upton Stout and what they can do to that secondary room. But I really like that you got Arroyo and Makuba, and I think Kyle McCord's a really solid pick as well. That's either like a great pick or a throwaway pick, and you
Yeah.
don't really know. Um, what I like about mine is I'm not going to exit this draft feeling like I didn't really try to attack the offensive and defensive lines. Like, this is a class that if it doesn't work out, it won't be for lack of trying.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the leadership also that is added there. That's a secondary part of all this, but I like that. And if I hadn't gotten Jalen Noel and maybe Jack Kaiser, I would feel less excited. But I think Jalen Noel as a returner and a receiver adds a lot. So I think these are pretty even. Like I would have a hard time choosing between these two. And for what it's worth, I'm sure you probably feel the same way. This wasn't like my favorite of my drafts. Like you kind of
No,
draft what you can in the sim. So like it wasn't like it fell exactly how I wanted it to. But yeah,
no, that was my big takeaway. Just like I'm so used to the other Sims at this point, like I kind of know how I can structure a draft. This one was kind of hard. It was just kind of like the first time I've ever done it was the other one, and then this was the second time. And like I hadn't done many scenarios lately where Donovan Jackson was my first pick, and
yep.
I was kind of just letting the board come to me at this point rather than kind of attacking the way I do in the other ones. So it wasn't my favorite, but it's very funny we ended up with the same first pick and
Well, I
same
mean,
third pick, and
if you go back and you look through this, so same first round pick, same third round pick, and then we have another seventh round pick that's pretty much the same.
we have
And
one
then,
interior lineman from Georgia each.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's clear we talk a lot, but you took a tackle, I took a tackle. You took a running back, I didn't. You took a tight end, I didn't. That was like my biggest like what I didn't like about my class was the lack of tight end. We both took well, I took two corners, you took one. Um, you did not take a linebacker, right? Yeah, you
Yeah,
did not take a
or D line,
linebacker.
which is why I felt bad about it.
Yeah, like that's the thing is I mean, you don't you could kind of pick you could pick every position and feel like okay, I ticked off that position, but did you really feel like that was the best player? And so you don't always know. All right, so poll results with 76 votes in. Surprisingly, I won this one 61% of the votes for me. So, Jeff, heading into the final round, we are one round apiece on the scorecard. Are you ready for the final
Let's
round?
go. I think you did win that draft. Like I figured the fans might like me better because fans like skill positions typically, but I think the Seahawks are at a point where people are so frustrated.
I thought it was going to be you. I was pretty sure it was going to be you, but that's how it ends. So one round apiece, final round, winner take all, and the goal, the theme for this round, for this draft, was strengthen a strength. So this is the idea of don't just draft for need, take guys that are going to make something that's already a strength on your roster even stronger. All right? That is and it doesn't mean you can't take offensive linemen because that's not a strength. It just means that that's not the primary focus. It's about strengthening a strength. All right, Jeff. By the way, every time you go to check your other tab, your screen turns black. So
Okay, well I had to remember who I took.
I
So
know that's fine. Just so you know. All right, so let me get ready to do your strengthen a strength pick, strengthen a strength draft. All right, and your first pick, Jeff, is who?
Malachi Starks, the safety from Georgia. Uh,
Whoa, we're off to an interesting start. Tell me
um,
more.
I think he's one of the cleaner players in the first round. I think the Seahawks secondary is one of the strengths of their group. I think especially at safety once Kobe Bryant emerged. And I know McDonald kind of alluded to you the other day that maybe three safeties isn't the way they go next year. But if you really want to make this like group special, it's adding in another player in that group. So Janae Barron was someone who just went right before me. I thought about him. But Starks is someone who some people have said like his ball skills and his clean like profile off the field just can really just make a team. And Georgia's had so many good players come into the league the last few years. So I think he is one of just like the cleanest players in the draft. I know we would love to go trenches, but if you really want to just build one of the strengths of the Seahawks into an even bigger strength, if Starks gets like the player he was the last year and a half, I think it really makes that group even better.
Sorry, I just saw this in chat, made me laugh. If oh, I thought this was about Jeff Simmons. It's John Schneider. I never put two and two together. You have the same initials as
Yeah.
our GM. I thought people were hassling you about not going hard enough in the trenches.
My first two picks were guards. It better not
Yeah.
be me.
All right. So my first pick, dude, we're so funny. I went safety as well, but I went Nick Emenwari.
Yeah.
And like strengthening his strength. Safety's already a position where I think the Seahawks are in pretty good shape. Nick Emenwari is a completely different player than those other two guys, and I think can be used in different ways, and is a excellent zone coverage dude. Has cornerback background. I think, and also part of this is defense. The defense is the strength of the team.
Yeah.
I think he's a guy that can really be a chess piece for Mike McDonald. So
It's
that's where I went that way.
it's funny because both those players just feel like Ravens picks in some
Yeah,
ways.
yeah,
Like Starks kind of has some like Ed Reed to his game. It's not Ed Reed by any means, but he has some Ed Reed. And Imanuri just feels some Kyle Hamilton. So like McDonald, they just felt so. I wouldn't be surprised if any of them are the pick in the end. So
yeah, yeah.
funny we both
Agreed.
started there.
Agreed. All right. Round two. Jeff, who are your two second round picks? Strengthening a strength.
I took Tyleek Williams, the defensive lineman from Ohio State, to keep adding to that group.
Uh huh.
I think the defensive tackle group is the strength of the Seahawks defense right now, and keep adding more bodies in that group. Jaron Reed's an older player, so I think that's a
Mm-hmm.
good one. And the second one I took was Mason Taylor, the tight end. I took him in another draft, but you have Barner, you have Fan. It's a decent group. You have the blocking tight end. I think to really make that group a strength is you add just kind of like the big time receiving tight end. Fan hasn't been. So I think Mason Taylor would really round out that group and make tight end, which the Kubiak Shanahan offense loves, that becomes the strength of your passing game.
Interesting. Interesting. Because guess who my second pick was? Tyleek Williams. Strengthening strength. Yes. I won't go back into that, but I think that we see that the same way. My second round pick and my third pick overall, Donovan Jackson.
Oh,
Donovan Jackson fell to me, and I was not gonna turn a blind eye to that. I think it's probably not realistic, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities, depending on how people see this class. So took Donovan Jackson. That was my first not strengthening a strength pick, but
yeah.
it was the value was too great to ignore.
Yep.
All right, third round. Who are your two third round picks, Jeff?
I took Jared Wilson, the center from Georgia. I don't know if he'll be there in third round, but they like the centers they have, but I think they're comfortable with them. But I think Jared Wilson would really make that a strength. I think he's the best center in this class, so it would strengthen the middle of your offensive line. The
Mm-hmm.
second one's a bit different than any mock I've done before. I took Cam Scatterbo. Uh,
Ah,
and so
interesting.
I think he could be a fullback for you. I think he could
Uh
make
huh.
the running back group really good.
Uh
I think
huh.
he could open up a short yardage option. If they really want to make the running back group a strength, I think Scatterbo could be a really good fullback. I think he could be a good running back in short yardage. I think if you have Walker, him, and I think that's going to open up a lot of possibilities. So that is not a pick I make very often, but if you really want to strengthen a strength, I think he can do some cool stuff.
I think that's a great call out, and I see people in chat somewhat confused, saying you're picking an area that's a weakness. Okay, Let me explain this again. The theme is to strengthen a strength. That doesn't mean that's the only thing you can do in the draft. We're not going to do it. We didn't want to make this so unrealistic. You think the Seahawks are not going to take an offensive lineman? Of course they're going to take offensive linemen. So this was with the primary goal of taking something that's a strength on your roster and making it stronger, or taking something good and making it great. And so, yes, Jared Wilson is a totally logical thing, and Donovan Jackson is a logical thing in that kind of situation because they're still going to be part of a draft class. And I love the Cam Scatabo thing as a strengthening of a strong running back room. My third round picks, Jeff, Omar Norman Lott. So back with another defensive lineman. And again, I'm like, he's too good not to pick. And if he ends up pushing off the roster, one of these other defensive linemen, so be it. Like, if you end up with Tyleik Williams, Omar Norman Lott, and Byron Murphy for years to come, like, I'm okay with that. And you think the Eagles wouldn't pick another disruptive defensive lineman because they feel like he wouldn't necessarily play as much as first year? No. So Omar Norman Lott was my first pick in the third round. And then Kyle Williams, wide receiver from WSU.
Yeah.
Not a guy we pick as often, but a guy that I really like. Some people have him as the second best receiver in this class. Some people have him as maybe a first round pick. Some people have him as a fifth round pick. I think the wide receiver room could use, I think it's already pretty strong, but I think it still needs some additional help. So I added to that room. Your fourth round pick is
Kobe Bryant,
the
cornerback.
Okay.
So I've already strengthened the safety room. I think they need a cornerback group we've talked about getting Josh Jobs some competition. I think Kobe Bryant, they need a long-term corner depending on what happens with Woolen. So I think he was a really good value spot to kind of add to what is a strength of the team. But to make this a strength, they need more depth at that third corner spot. Right now it's Job, and if Woolen gets injured, who comes into play? Right now, is it Pritchett? Is it the guy they signed from the Saints? So to really strengthen this group, I want to add Kobe Bryant.
It's funny. We're mimicking each other too much on some places. My fourth round pick, Jaden Blue. So we traded guys. You picked Jaden Blue in the last one. I picked Kobe Bryant in the last one. Now we've switched seats. I just like Blue. I think the running back room's already strong. I can definitely see John Schneider adding to it, and I think Jaden Blue's speed is really appealing. 4.38 kind of guy. Unbelievable that Nickem and Worry is the same speed as Jaden Blue, but
insane.
Unbelievable. So that's my fourth round pick. What about your fifth round picks?
My fifth round picks were Jalen Travis, the offensive tackle. I think that's clearly an area they need some depth, but the top guys are a strength. And then I took Jack Kaiser. So I took him in another draft, but the linebacker, they have the two guys that are looking really good, but they don't have a third linebacker. So I think Kaiser fits in to fill out that depth, which really makes that position group a lot more well-rounded.
Yeah, I like it. My fifth round picks, Chase Lunt, tackle. So we both took another tackle in the fifth round. And then I took Kyle McCord, quarterback.
No way.
So you know what? We're seeing things similarly in different drafts, but I think McCord to me screams fifth round pick, and that's where I'd be comfortable taking him. And I think that he has the potential. Like, I love him as a passer. He just doesn't offer much beyond passing. He's not a mover, so I don't think he's a guy that I'd want to like bet a lot on. But I'd certainly be happy to take a chance on him. All right, seventh round. Who are your two seventh round picks?
I took Jack Nelson, tackle guard. I know I already just took Jalen Travis, but
yeah,
let's keep rounding this group out. Like, I don't think Josh Jones is enough to make me feel good about it. So happy to make that of strength if you have four offensive tackles that you like long term. And then I took Jimmy Horn Jr., the receiver.
Yep.
And so I hadn't taken a receiver in this draft. And so just adding a guy who's played at a big-time school, I figured it was worth a dart throw in the seventh round. So that was my seventh round.
All right, my seventh round was Upton Stout, the corner, and Ricky White, the receiver. So, who had the better final drafts? And the choices will be Jeff and Brian. This is for all the marbles. And here is the two drafts that we just talked about. Strengthening a strength. And think about this. The way to judge this is both, did you make a strong part of the roster stronger? Defensive side of the ball, defensive line, running back room, whatever's already a strength, safety, and the quality of the overall class. So did you achieve your goal of strengthening a strength and get the most talent out of it? Jeff, which of these classes do you like better?
Donovan Jackson, the second pick in round 2, is a big swing vote. Like, we both took him at 18 in our preferred draft, so I think that pick and then the Norman lot to pile on to Tyleik Williams, it's pretty hard to beat what you did there. Yeah, again, Donovan Jackson, I think it would be such a good pick at 52. It'd be hard not to for me to come up with any scenario to beat that draft.
Yeah, I love the Scatabo pick for you. I love the double tackle picks that you got. I think Travis and Nelson are both really interesting prospects. Starks may end up being the better safety. Like, as much as Emin is the unreal athlete, Starks is a really interesting, interesting player at safety. He might be the best option there.
Yeah, the guys in our real hot chuck chat really like Starks.
Yep.
Like, far more comfortable with him almost than Emin.
A lot of people are not like thrilled about Emin and like they talk about all these safeties they think might be better than him. I don't know, man. I walked away from that week in the combine pilled, like, not only because of his testing, but just talking to him and his presence. This guy has no doubt how good he is. He has the air of a great player. He not only has Cam Chancellor physical profile, better in some ways, but he's got that quiet confidence. And when you've got that kind of athletic ability, that kind of confidence, and that kind of game tape, I just think this guy's destined to be a star. So I'm listening, but I'm not agreeing. Ignoring is the wrong word. I'm listening, but I'm not agreeing with the takes about Eminori. So, all right, let's see what people said for the tie-breaking round with 71 votes. 59%, 60% have selected my draft. So, Jeff.
Damn it.
Sorry, dude. Sorry, not sorry.
Jared Wilson in the third round, I still lose by 10%. Damn.
Let's go.
I could be your assistant GM. I think that's what the voters are saying.
You could at least get me some beers after Donovan Jackson falls to me in the second round.
Yeah, if we get Donovan Jackson in the second round, I'll send over some beers. I'll gladly send over some beers.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, obviously, it's all good and fun. We draft who the sim puts to us. Like, if Donovan Jackson had fallen to you, it might have been a very different result.
Yep.
But anything you learned going through that 3 different themed process?
Me and you think very similarly.
Yes. It's almost like we talk too much.
It is, but like that one had no coordination at all. It was like, go do 3 blind drafts in an hour and figure out what you come up with. So we do talk a lot, but I think our mentality of how to build a team and where the Seahawks need to get better is pretty similar. Like, I think if you add a couple other guys do this thing, you get wildly different answers. So I think we're pretty aligned in a couple areas of just where this class falls, what the strengths are, and what they shouldn't do. Mm-hmm. And so I think the worst draft to me felt like the Schneider one. I don't know about that to you. It's funny we both came up with yours, but I think it's very clear. And the more I keep doing these scenarios, just where the strengths are of this draft, like, none of us took the receiver first. And I know, like, Mike Mayock came on. It's like, he wondered if Seattle's going to take a receiver at 18, and it's been like every mock. So I don't feel great about any of those scenarios. So it's kind of cool that we just are so heavy on interior O-line, tight end, D-line, safety, depth at offensive line. Seems like we're very aligned in just the whole class in general.
Yeah, I think that's all right. I agree with you in looking at this like Schneider draft. I'm like uncomfortable with it. Like
Well,
there's a
I
lot
think
of
the thing
things.
with the Schneider drafts is it's kind of what you said before. It's like a little bit here, a little bit there. They don't really get better at anything.
I think the part that I sometimes don't like about John's draft picks are that they feel like there's a gravitational pull towards the middle. Like they're just going to be okay. There's not the guys that feel like super high ceiling players. And it's not quite to like the level of oh my gosh, what's the GM's name that was before Schneider that let
Tim
Hutchinson go?
Ruskell.
Ruskell. It was not quite to the level of Ruskell. I've like basically removed that guy from my mind. I could not stand that guy.
Oh God.
But he would pick players that you're just like the ceiling's not high, and yeah, maybe they're high character guys, but that doesn't matter if they're not good. And so like I really like Olufemi Oladejo. I'm not sure he's worth a third round pick. He's like maybe a better guy than he is a player. Um, I Jake Brenningstool, like that is like the milk toasty-ish fullback option. Like I would be so much more excited about a Willie Lampkin or even a Jalen Conyers, someone like that. But I could absolutely see Logan Brown. Like I would be
Jackson
so
Haas.
much more excited about Jalen Travis or Jack Nelson or whatever. Like absolutely Josiah Stewart. He's like one of the
Right.
most talented edge rushers in this class, but he's so small. He may just turn out to be nothing. And so like and Marcus Bowe is kind of like that for me too. I know that C Mike Spin Move, Griff Sturgeon loves Marcus Bowe, but he to me is like such a sink or swim kind of pick. Like he could end up not making it and like just being a not good fit for the NFL, or he could be maybe the best outside zone player in the whole class.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. Like that was interesting. I will say this. I really struggled like in this our picks draft. Like I really didn't like coming out without a tight end. Like that just feels like such a miss in this class. And
That's
then
yeah, go ahead.
this was the first class where I was like not drafting offensive linemen first and not even drafting offensive linemen second. And I was like, I kind of like this class. Like
That if they
this
end
is
up
my
with those
favorite of all mine for sure.
first five picks, it would be very hard not to come out. Like if we're at 52 and there's been no offensive lineman, I know we're all going to be just turning our stomachs. But if that became Donovan Jackson, that would be quite fast. But again,
Yeah.
that's what I said. The problem with Schneider's drafts, I find, and even last year when they had all that capital, it's like a little here, a little there. There's no like area they're built getting better at. And it just finds like you end up in day three picks of like Mike Morris and Cam Young. And
Mm-hmm.
that year they're like their D line was a huge problem. They didn't end up addressing that. And then they're chasing it. And so something like that where you come out with two D linemen, O linemen, a big safety, like you're bigger, you're stronger, you're tougher to play against, you get the skill position. But that's where I wonder, like for tight end, if you don't take the tight end on round two, it kind of can get away from you and you can kind of lose it quick. So when he was talking about maybe like they move up the board, I wonder if tight end is a potential option for them, even though I don't think it's the best strategy in general. But
Yeah, it's gonna be fascinating to see, and we've got a couple super chats. If we can get to those, Crumpled Zinc became a YouTube member, so welcome. Alan Bond, member for 12 months, says 1 year, baby. Well, thank you for being a member, and he's using the Pie Evan emoji with his pumpkin pie face from the San Francisco win. Hawk Maniac, who's been a member for 2 months, says, Go Hawks, Darnold versus Geno conversation needs to die. I get it. It probably won't for a little while. It may not for a long while, to be honest.
yeah.
These two guys are going to be linked for a bit. And conversation will continue. I just, I think Jeff and I are in the same camp of, I don't think anybody should say that they know for certain that the Seahawks are better or worse right now. I just don't think you know.
I don't
And
know.
we won't until we get to the season.
And the thing is, with like, it's not to revisit this, but like players age differently. Like Geno might age really well. He might age poorly. Like, you saw what happened with Russell Wilson and Cousins, and that might happen. And maybe because he didn't play. So like, to be sure, like past production is going to lead to future production. That's bullshit. You don't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Hawk Scoots from Canada, just like Jeff, says Tate Ratledge was on an episode of Bruzel a year ago, a bourbon channel. A cool behind the scenes look at him bourbon hunting makes me love him even more.
I need to know more about bourbon hunting.
Chris Clark has gifted 5 Hawk Blogger memberships. If you haven't turned on gifting, that's how you get access to these free Hawk Blogger memberships. And those go to people that like, subscribe, watch the show. That's how YouTube decides who gets these free memberships. So thank you to Chris for doing that. He's also been a member for 11 months. He says, congratulations, Jeff, on the baby, and love the Scatabo pick.
Wow. That of all the picks, that's the one, eh?
That was fun, man. I like that. I liked that pick.
Yeah.
And it was like a little bit different. And it fits not only with strengthening a strong room, but he's a strong player. And I think that was also, when I look at your class there's a lot of like strength, not just area of strength, but strong guys, all the way down the board. I think that's one of the cool things about that class. So, with that, I'll just say thank you, Jeff, for another fun week, and I will see you soon. And what I will share with everybody else is make sure you give the show a like, click subscribe. If you want ad-free audio of the audio version of this podcast, all you got to do is sign up at patreon.com/hawkblogger. That will get you ad-free audio. I post that immediately following each of these. And if you don't know already, you can now get access to this show as well as Real Hawk Talk and Emergency Podcasts and all the ones we do wherever you get your podcasts. So Apple, Spotify, anywhere that you get your podcast, you can now get this show. And if you wouldn't mind, I would really appreciate giving us a 5-star review. Spotify, Apple Podcast. Takes only a second. Leave a quick review. Let people know you feel great about the show. I would appreciate it. Hopefully you enjoyed this fun mock draft battle for Jeff and I. This has been another Seahawks Saturday. I hope you guys have a great day. Get out there, enjoy the Pacific Northwest sun if you are in the Pacific Northwest. Otherwise, enjoy your day wherever you are. I'm Brian Nemhauser. This has been another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care, y'all.